Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you've been following along with this process, I've been doing a series of this altered book journal of Old Mother Goose, and we have completed the inside of the journal other than the tags and the things that we're going to put in it. We just have the cover left to go. So we're going to do the cover now, and then we will do the tags and things last. So let's get cracking. So feel free to craft along or to grab a cup of tea or something. So I brought along on one of the earlier episodes, sorry, we're actually, I think, just so you're aware, I think we're up to part 10 now. I kind of lost track a little bit earlier on in the week, but I think this is part 10, episode 10. So yes, if you're kind of just picking them up, for the first time, then this is episode 10. So I have brought along previously this, which is my daughter's dress. And it was this kind of gorgeous minty green and white. And I have obviously cut a section from it. And I've coffee dyed this section. So it's kind of looking nice and vintage now to go with the journal. It has picked up this very kind of random coffee staining here. This was where I was drying it on the radiator, and obviously kind of the coffee went to kind of the surface on this patch, but I don't think that will matter too much. It might not even be particularly used, that part of the fabric, because that will be at the back. But if it is, that's absolutely fine. I'm fine with that also. So I've brought along lots of different bits and bobs today. To play around with once we've stuck this fabric on. So I'm going to move that out of the way for a second. Now, obviously this is a hardback book, and obviously it was this vibrant turquoise colour. So the only thing that I have actually done, off screen, is I've just painted around the edge in the pink that we've used on the pages, just so that where we place the fabric, because I'm not going to go round the edges, it will actually have pink rather than turquoise, if you see what I mean. So that's the only thing that I've done, is kind of painted around the edges. And I'm really hoping that I haven't made a mistake here by not painting the entire book. I'm hoping that kind of it's not going to really show up that we've got pink and turquoise there. It may do while it's wet with the glue, but I think that probably once the glue dries, that will kind of disappear. But I may be completely wrong, so we'll see together how that kind of appears. So I'm going to first thing get sticking it down. So let me just check that I have got a card here for spreading out the glue. I'm going to roll my sleeves up because I am very messy. I don't want to get it all over my top. Okay. I bought some new glue for this purpose, so that I'm not messing about with the glue that was kind of gone very, gloopy. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm literally going to kind of spread the glue all around here on this kind of front cover, and I'm going to spread it around just with a paintbrush, so like this. So we're going to have plenty of glue on here because obviously we want this to really stick. So I'll just put plenty of glue on, like that. I mean, as I say, I'm not sure whether this is going to cover perfectly, because obviously previously when I've done things like this, the fabric has been darker or the book has been not so, coloured. So it's an experiment here. So we'll learn together whether it actually is going to work. So I'm just going to spread the glue like that with the paintbrush, just so that it's not got kind of odd patches so much. So like that, just going to put a bit more there. And obviously once it's kind of down and in place, we can always stick up any bits that are lifting at the edges and things. So we'll just pop that like that. Okay, fingers crossed. Here we go. So I've got the fabric Now I'm going to try and line it up. Again, this isn't ideal doing it on camera because obviously the book is kind of further away from me than I would normally have it, so that it's actually in frame on the iPad. And the light is, you know, because obviously I want the light to be good on the film, the light is not quite so great for me in the flesh. So just trying to get it down without ripples, really, to kind of make it as smooth as possible. So then I'm going to just get my card and just stick it like this to make sure it's down. And obviously I've never used stripy fabric before, so that also is a bit of a test, because obviously, you know, the stripes are going to be a bit of a telltale giveaway, aren't they, if I haven't got it quite right. So that's that there. Press it down kind of firmly at the edges, but as I say, you know, if kind of afterwards it seems to be lifting anywhere, we can go back around that. So I'm quite liking the look of that. It looks quite neat and tidy. So my next thing to do is to pop it into the crease of the book. So what I'm going to do is put a really good line of glue here in the crease. Like that. Take my fabric again. And then what I'm going to do is kind of press it in with the card, so it's really kind of stuck down in the crease of the book. Like that. And I mean, again, you know, I haven't quite decided how this cover's going to look, so it may be that we're going to kind of pop things on and most of this fabric will be covered up yet, you know. Throughout the course of this particular episode, we will decide, you know, how to have it. So I just want to say, by the way, thank you so much to everyone who has commented on my last couple of videos. I had obviously done the last batch in one day, even though I've uploaded them on separate days. So, you know, unfortunately, this is my first opportunity to thank everybody. I had obviously been really losing confidence over this series, and was very worried that I was kind of the only person who was really enjoying it. So I just want to really thank everybody, because your kind of kind words and, you know, encouragement, I really do appreciate it all, and it really is very encouraging. So thank you very much to those people who've taken the time to kind of say that they are actually enjoying the series and they're still watching, because that really does mean a lot. So thank you very much for that. Okay. So hopefully that's kind of stuck there in the crease. I mean, obviously this glue is not dry, so I mean, I'm not saying it's stuck hard and fast. It's obviously not, but you know, it's stuck enough for us to kind of move around the book now. So what I'm going to do now is, and again, this isn't ideal because obviously I would normally be working with this closer up to me. You know, instead it's kind of outstretched a bit away from me, which I like to work with things, you know, pretty close. So I'm just going to put a big dob there, and I might actually spread that with the brush just here along the spine, like that. So, you know, a good amount there, and then we flip the fabric back over once again. Oops, got a bit of a crease going on there. There we go. And I mean, again, actually you can see a little bit of the text there from the spine. Again, I don't know whether you will be able to once the glue is dry, you know, time will tell. You know, we'll have to kind of wait and see really, but I mean, if you can, then I mean, that doesn't really worry me, but it might be that we're going to cover that anyway. So, you know, we'll just kind of see how it is. So obviously the next part is to do the crease on the other side. So again, just move that slightly down, and again a good run of glue into the crease. Oh, come on. Okay, I got enough there actually. Just put a bit more. I mean, always better to have too much than not enough really. I'll pop that in there. just with the card kind of to, you know, press it into the crease. And then just press it kind of with my finger so it's a little less severe, like that. Okay, so hopefully that's kind of really sticking good and well now. And then finally, obviously, is the back cover itself. So again, just as per the front, I'm just going to do a really good amount of glue all around here. And then I'm going to spread it with the paintbrush. So, and I mean, again, I'd rather use too much than not enough. So, you know, we'll use plenty. There we go. Right, get the brush, spread the glue all the way to the edges. Yeah, I have really loved doing this series, and funnily enough, I replied to one of the comments, you know, I don't know about you guys, but often when I start a journal, you know, I don't quite have kind of a plan at first of how it's going to go. Sometimes I do, or sometimes I have a bit of an idea of kind of how I want it to look, but, you know, sometimes I don't. And I have to say, with this particular one, I didn't have a clue how it was going to turn out. And all I can say is I'm so thrilled with how it's looking, because it really does look so pretty, and you know, I think so girly, so pretty. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of not necessarily kind of how I expected it to turn out, but actually it's probably exceeded kind of how I wanted it to look. So I'm really thrilled to bits with how it's looking. So we've got that like that. We just have a little bit of a ripple here in the fabric, but it might be that that's going to have to stay like that. There we go. So that's that. And then what I normally do, if I've done things like this, and can you see my glue's now seeped out, even though this is brand new one, it's all seeped out the side. I'm now getting glue all over my son's desk. Let me see whether I have some tissue here to wipe that around. Actually, I have to clean his desk up even more than usual when I leave his room today, because I'm sure he won't appreciate having glue literally stuck all over his desk there. Right, so I've popped that to one side. So what I normally do, I'll pop the paintbrush also to one side, is cut it here just around the edge, the fabric. So obviously the top is kind of in line with the top of the book, so that's absolutely fine. Now what I might do is actually leave it to dry rather than try and cut it wet, because I don't want to kind of pull it off. But what I might do is just literally cut it slightly so it's smaller, and I'm not having so much fabric overhang, you know, getting in the way while we're working. Like that. But I don't really want to kind of go up right to the edge, although on the front is kind of drying already. So I could kind of do that on the front here. So just kind of, and you know, it really doesn't have to be perfect. I can kind of tear along that bit, being careful just in case it runs out of alignment and kind of, you know, into the book cover itself. But you know, kind of a little bit like that. And actually I might be able to kind of go right the way around. Let's see whether I can do that. Obviously I'm a bit scared of kind of pulling it, because obviously this glue on the back is still quite wet, but that's not too bad. There we go. Right, so we've got rid of the entire bottom, just have a little bit of the pink showing, but obviously that's why I've painted the edges pink, so that that's, you know, that's all fine. So that's the cover. And obviously I will trim this off once the glue has dried slightly more. So there's the fabric kind of base for the cover. Now I've brought along obviously several other things that we can kind of experiment around with and decorate the cover. And also obviously, you know, need to think about closure obviously for the journal. So I have got this kind of elasticy trim here, which I have used this a few times in other projects. So the elasticy stuff is always quite good to be able to hook around and then you kind of slip it off. I quite like how that works. So I've got that. I've also got this pink lace, which is also, funnily enough, elasticated. So that's another option. I just kind of pull the length of that. So we could kind of have a look at which of those might work. And then what we could do is either glue this down here, kind of on either end. I'll show you kind of how that would work, like that. Hope this is all making sense. Glue that down kind of on either end, and then obviously we could cover that with some lace or something, and then you'd have, whoops, this is not great to demonstrate, but you would then have obviously the elastic piece that then slips off, which I quite like that. Personally, I think that's quite a good closure and quite a nice method. Or we could kind of have it actually loose completely. And what I could do, I have in the past kind of stitched this elasticy trim together and made actually those corsage kind of things that go around, you know, your wrist and kind of pop a flower on. They look really pretty. So we could do that, but obviously I don't want to, you know, stop the video and go downstairs and, you know, stitch that. So I could obviously just hot glue that together. And if I was to do that, what I would do is actually stick it on here like this. And then, now I'm not going to be able to find them because again, I have got this ever-growing pile of supplies that I'm bringing down every time. I can find them. What I would do then is obviously I've got these round felts that I would then cover that so that A, it's covered, it doesn't look quite, you know, such an eyesore, but also that's kind of double sticking that then, which, you know, kind of would hold it better. And then obviously you would be able to slip that on and off completely. I quite like either way, but you know, maybe the flower would be better off fixed. Now this is just a flower that I have made. It's a bit like the flowers. In fact, I might have actually made this one in my tutorial. I actually can't remember now. But I've brought this along every time that we've done this series because I thought this would go nicely with the journal. So, you know, I could have that somewhere on this front cover. Equally, if we were to use the pink stretchy kind of elasticated lace, that would, you know, we could do that exactly the same method. So again, we could kind of stick that down here on either side and it would kind of just wrap, whoops, just wrap around, you know, and you would just kind of slide it on and off. So I quite like either. I'm slightly pulling towards this crinkled kind of elasticated trim. This has all been coffee dyed. I think I did say that. So it's obviously got a bit of an uneven coffee dye about it, but you know, that's kind of fitting nicely with the book. So I might move this pink lace out of the way and go with this one. So other kind of embellishments really that I've brought along to kind of just try. I've got this gorgeous heart which I've stamped just onto some really pretty fabric, and then I've tea stained this and it's been stitched onto Hessian. So I mean, I did wonder about kind of sticking this somewhere on the front cover, and I did wonder about having a kind of cluster of objects down here in the corner, which I thought you know, might look quite nice. So you know, we're just playing around, seeing what kind of things might look nice. I have got this floral trim that I have brought along, I think, to every episode, which again, that may look nice. And, you know, it does look quite pretty there, and it does go nicely with, obviously, this fabric. You know, or we could have it on this side, probably this side, you know, by my liking. I also have brought along, well, I've actually brought along a fabric tag. But I did try that very briefly just before I started recording, and I just wasn't sure that that was quite the right shape for this book. I've also brought along some pearl trim. Now this is kind of flat back pearl trim, So it glues really nicely onto kind of projects and things. So I did wonder about having that. I've also got one of these flowers, which now this was off, I think it was from a pair of like flip-flops of my daughter's. It's hard to remember, isn't it, because I take so many things off of so many things, but I think that this was off of some flip-flops of hers. And again, I've kind of ruffled it up a little bit more, and you know, I quite like the look of that. So I did wonder about kind of having a couple of flowers kind of down here. I don't know whether I would be able to kind of thin this out at all more, where I've obviously cut it from the flip-flops. Obviously it's held with this kind of brad or eyelet or something there, and I don't want to obviously kind of actually damage the flower by pulling that out, because then I think the whole flower will just actually fall apart. So you know, I'm conscious not to kind of do that really, but I've just made that a little bit smaller, you know, so we could have that, although that's now a little bit unstable from doing that. And cut around a bit more. I just thought this flower was quite pretty, and there we go. I've cut enough of it for it to actually have come out of its own accord, but obviously still leave the metal piece intact, which is fabulous because now it's not so bulky. So we could have those two flowers there, which I think look quite pretty. I've got in my little tin, I have another fabric flower which I have brought along, just wondering again about. So we've got a variety of flowers there that we could use. I've also got the crochet ribbon or crochet trim that we've used a lot in this journal, and I love that. Everywhere I put it, it just looks lovely. So, you know, we could kind of have something like that. And then I've got some metal bits and pieces as well. I've got this little kind of keyhole. Just take the brad out because I don't think I will use the brad for fastening it wherever I fasten it. Just put the brad away in that tin. So we could have a little keyhole somewhere, which looks quite nice. Could kind of glue that on. So if I just put this floral trim back down the edge, so we could have something like that kind of down the edge, which I think that looks quite pretty. You know, to me that looks quite nice. And what I also dug out was, I've got this brooch of this butterfly, and I thought maybe we could just pin that onto whatever ruffle that we use. And then it could obviously be just taken off and worn, or just taken off the journal, you know, or left on there, kind of depending on how the owner wants to kind of keep it. So I just wondered about that really. So we could have something like that. Now, if we're thinking that this is looking a little bit plain, I have also got this pink lace, obviously, which gifted to me by Laura, which actually is the lace that I've used in this particular flower. So we could actually just distressing cut a piece of this and kind of pop it on the cover as well, and then it's kind of not quite so plain. So if I just kind of hold that like that, just roughly, and then kind of if we were to pop the flowers on like that, and say we were to use the keyhole on there. Not sure about that, to be honest. I mean, I actually really quite like this gorgeous stripy fabric. Maybe that's the wrong ruffle again. Again, maybe that's the wrong ruffle, and I'll have bought that every single time to do an episode and never used it. So we could have it like that. And again, I have got this pink lace that obviously we've used a lot in this journal. Could have that somewhere. Just playing around really, and just kind of, you know, putting things on, taking them off, putting them on, taking them off. I mean, we could just have something kind of along the spine, you know, briefly. I have also got this kind of soft pink net kind of ruffle. We could have that somewhere. That's quite pretty. Maybe we could have that on the edge like that. Maybe even with some crocheted lace coming out the other side. See, to me, that's now getting a bit too narrow, you know, having both of those. So I'm going to take that off. I've got some pink ruffle that we've used, obviously, in this journal. We could have that. So we could do it like that. Well, what do we think? You know, we don't have to have that lock. We don't have to, you know, we don't have to have any of these items really. Let me just try that back there. Just wondered whether we could have it kind of symbolic, like kind of key to your heart. But that's not really kind of working for me. Oh, decisions. So now I'm back to, do we actually want this lace back on here? You know, I mean, we could even layer it up with a little bit more of this fabric from the dress. You know, we could kind of double layer it like that. And then have a couple of flowers there like that. I'll just make that slightly smaller. And obviously that would be quite interesting because it would be going obviously the other way to the stripes on the actual cover. So we could have it like that. And I could have that lock placed somewhere there. I quite like that. To me, that kind of sort of breaks it up a little bit. So I'm going to just cut this roughly here. Oops. You know, and if obviously decide not to, that's fine. You know, we can obviously change it. But I'm just going to try it like this. Move that fabric out of the way. And then if I get this pink lace, if I've got kind of a straight edge, actually it has got this little kind of, what's the word for that? I don't know, a curved edge. That's quite nice. I should have it like that. Oops, put the lock on there. That's quite nice, isn't it? And then have kind of a fabric ruffle down that side instead. Yeah, I quite like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it actually on this line and probably about here. Oops. So I'm just going to cut it here. I've been so excited to do this cover. I hope it turns out nicely. You know, and I don't spoil it. So it's a little bit pressurising doing it on camera because obviously if I ruin it completely, you know, it's not like I can't upload the video because I've promised that we're doing the whole thing together. So we could have it like that. Now I could distress this pink lace or I could just leave it. But I think I will distress it because obviously the whole journal is quite vintagey looking. I'm just going to pop that to one side for a moment. And obviously I'm at my son's desk, so I'm just going to see if he's got a scrap of paper or anything that I could use to kind of lean on. It's hard to say what's what's scraps and what's not actually on his desk, but he does have a plain sheet, so I'm pretty sure that that's okay to use. So I'm just going to literally get my distress ink and just distress, you know, quite lightly. I'm going to try not to overdo it, but just around the edge of the pink. So I'll just move that out of the way, just so it's kind of got an uneven colour rather than perfect, you know, the perfect pink, because obviously that's not quite in keeping with the rest of the journal. So I just I hope I'm in frame for this. Again, the iPad's up quite high, so it is hard to say what's quite in frame and what's not, because obviously, you know, now I've begun to move things around, it's no longer quite how I originally had it set up. Right, let's move that piece of paper out of the way. So we've got that there like that, and that piece there like that. Now I think that looks really pretty. You know, hopefully you all kind of agree and think it does. Just kind of, yeah, looks really nice. So I'm going to now glue the lace down. So again, all I'm going to do is literally just kind of stick it down like this. And that way we can obviously come back to it and stick any bits that kind of aren't stuck. So I'm just going to stick it roughly like this. And then on the other end of it. Now, I have said before, I mean, I find this glue pretty good, and, you know, I find it really, you know, pretty good even when it's sticking fabric and lace and everything. So, I mean, hopefully it's going to not let me down in this particular instance, and it's going to hopefully be just as good as kind of I found it, you know, previously. So that's that. And then I've got that there. I'm just going to trim this little corner off, which I just noticed is not very straight. I mean, not that it really matters, because a lot of it's going to be covered up anyway. You know, and I mean, obviously the whole point is that it's really not having to be perfect. Right, so that's my piece there. So what I'm going to do is just literally pop the glue all over there on the lace. Like that. And then I'm just going to take my card this time, just to kind of spread the glue out a bit. Now on here, obviously I've missed the corner, so I'm just going to pop a bit of glue there, just to kind of glue that corner down. And obviously the same here. Just pop that corner down. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, and honestly, you know, it can have kind of bits lifting, if you see what I mean, because sometimes that looks quite nice, doesn't it? You know, so long as it's stuck down on the hole. So I'll just pop lots of glue there, and then we'll just stick this one down like that. There we go, and then just a little bit here in the corner, a little bit there, like that. So I think that looks really good. Hopefully you all think it's looking good. Just put my glue out of the way, because probably now most things that we're going to glue down we will probably glue with hot glue now, rather than, you know, the wet glue. So I'm going to get kind of the bits and bobs that we want to kind of decorate this with. So we've got the lock, obviously. Now I think that looks really nice there. So I'm just going to pop that on using some hot glue. Just like that. Now obviously the only thing is sticking metal things with the hot glue, the metal gets very hot to touch, so I'm just being careful there not to kind of burn my fingers too much. This metal actually isn't too bad because it's quite thick. I have got these which I've used a lot over the time on both journals and mini albums, and these were off of a belt. The whole belt was these kind of packed around it, so you know there were loads and loads of them on the belt, which was absolutely amazing. And it was my mum's and she never actually used it, so she gave it to me, you know, for crafting. And I obviously kind of took all these bits off and then I just cut this off and stick them down, and normally I have them at the edge with some ribbon coming out for a closure. But these are obviously very, very thin metal, and my gosh, when you stick those with the hot glue, it's very hot to press down. This one, as I say, much thicker, so wasn't a problem actually. Right, so I'm liking that, and then I like those flowers there. And then, as I've been so determined to use this ruffle for the entire journal, I think I might have that there. You know, to me that looks really quite pretty. And then we've got obviously this empty space here. So again, completely kind of individual preference whether we leave that empty. We could obviously pop, you know, this journaling, what are these called? Anyway, you know, space for a title. We could pop that there. The only thing is I'm not so keen with it with the lock to the side, which I do really like. So maybe that's not quite so good. You know, or we could maybe have, again, I'll bring that heart back, maybe the heart there, you know, but kind of have it more covered up, you know, or we could just leave it empty. You know, I don't dislike it empty. I think that's quite nice. So I do like the flowers there. You know, I think they're really nice. So I'm going to pop them on, I think. I'm just checking whether I prefer it with nothing. No, I like it, I think, with the flowers. Let me just double check. And let me just double check now, kind of, you know, with different ruffles, just before we go gung-ho and actually kind of glue things on that then I can't really remove. My husband's just got back. They've just been to the shop to get some bits and bobs that I need for cooking the dinner. So I've just heard them get in, so I hope they're not going to be really noisy. Let's have a look. I mean, actually, that's quite pretty to kind of have the two different ribbons. I quite like that. And obviously the glue's looking quite patchy at the moment because it's wet. So I'm hoping that once it dries, it's not going to be patchy. You know, in the past, I've found that it kind of dries absolutely fine. But obviously, kind of, you know, we'll have to monitor that over the next 24 hours or whatever. Well, not really 24 hours, but, you know, a couple of hours anyway. So we could have it kind of like that. Or we could have kind of just some crochet trim and some lace and things, just kind of, you know, randomly placed. I quite like that kind of look. So we could have it just kind of like that. And then I kind of ruffle down there. Good, you know. And I think I said in my couple of videos ago, I mean, often, you know, I struggle quite a lot on the cover, and it's definitely not my favourite part of a journal. Yeah, because I think, you know, you don't want to kind of let the journal down. You know, when you're kind of then making the cover and decorating the cover, you want to kind of, you know, do the journal justice, don't you? So, yeah. So we could have it like that. And obviously we did say about having the butterfly kind of pinned on. So, I mean, that looks quite pretty, doesn't it? So what I might do is glue this flower on first. Like that. I'm just hoping that I've got another glue stick with me because my glue stick has run out. And would you believe I actually haven't? So I'm going to have to run and grab another glue stick. I work in our loft. We've had our loft converted and it's kind of a family room. So my craft corner is up there and that's where my glue is. So I'm really so sorry to do this to you. I'm going to just leave this here and I will be literally a couple of minutes. So I will be back momentarily with the glue stick. So I'm going as quick as I can go. Just grab it. Right, so I do apologise for that. Okay, I'm back now with the glue. So, let me pop another glue stick in. Out of breath now from obviously running up the stairs. Right, so next thing, do we prefer this one or this one? I quite like both. But maybe I'm more drawn to this one because it kind of feels more in keeping with the colours in the journal. Well, that one's quite sweet, isn't it? Now I'm wondering if this hasn't looked quite right because it's not distressed. That looks quite nice, doesn't it? Could have one of these in the centre. That might just finish that off really nicely. What do you think? I quite like it like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to distress ink this trim because you know, maybe that's kind of why I haven't quite been warming to it every time I've held it onto the pages. So I'm just going to literally distress ink down it, you know, very roughly. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. It's just literally just to get it looking a little bit more uneven, I suppose, and a bit more shabby chic to kind of go with the journal. I mean, that does look better, doesn't it? I mean, again, and I know I've said this a ton of times during this series, but it is, again, one of those kinds of scenarios that anybody who does not do crafting would kind of look and be like, wow, that just doesn't look, you know, any different, barely any different. I'm just going to write this because I actually forgot to pop the paper down. But to us crafters, it's quite a big difference. So to me, that just instantly looks so much better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the hot glue straight down the side here. Now again, you know, as I've kind of said previously, we're just kind of sticking all these things into place, and if anything then starts coming up over the next few hours, can just literally re-stick them. You know, because obviously I am doing this on film, so I mean this cover is not particularly, you know, it's not 100% dry, so obviously gluing on top of, you know, not 100% dry things is not ideal. You know, so I am kind of aware of that, and you know, anything that begins to lift at all can always just stick it back down. So, you know, I'm not overly worried about that. So now it's just a case of deciding which flower looks sweeter. Actually, I quite like this one, to be honest. And again, I hadn't actually glued that pearl centre on, so I might just glue that on there now. But I am just going to, I mean, I'm sure I must drive you all mad with my double checking and double checking, but you know, once it's stuck, I'm not saying it's irreversible, but it's better to get it how you want it, isn't it? So I'm just going to try just a plain coloured pearl and see whether I prefer that. I think I probably do. Just okay. So I'll just stick that pearl onto the flower, and again I would just use the hot glue for that. Like that. Okay, so that's kind of ready to go. Oops, ready to go now. Really pretty to me. That looks really pretty. You know, hopefully you guys agree. And then I can distress ink this. So I'll just bring the paper back this time and distress ink this. This is obviously just one of those pieces from the Kaiser Craft that we have used, you know, throughout this whole journal. So it's a nice way to tie it in on the cover. And what we can do is kind of glue that down, and then we could Mod Podge that or even glossy accent it, you know, once it's on there, you know, if we feel like that. So we could have it like that, or we could actually kind of layer it up with something. So we could layer it up with, you know, a bit of lace. Just try that like that. That to me looks really pretty. So just going to cut around there again very roughly. I'm not going to kind of you know, try and get it straight. In fact, I don't want it straight because I don't want it to look, you know, out of keeping with the rest of the book. I want it to kind of look very shabby and kind of you know, worn, I suppose, and kind of well loved. So, and then what we can do is distress ink that lace and kind of glue it down like that. I think that looks really pretty. So I just distress ink around there. Whoops. Okay. Because that to me then just ties that in much better, you know, now it's distressed. So we can pop that like that with that on top. Now the question is really how to glue this, because hot glue, I mean, I absolutely love the hot glue, but it can be a little bit lumpy sometimes under kind of papery items. So I'm wondering whether we should really go with just the, you know, the liquid glue here. So I think I would feel more comfortable with that. So I'm just going to get the liquidy glue, and I think just literally pop some glue down here, kind of roughly where it's going to be, like that. And the other thing is with the liquid glue, obviously because it's much slower drying, it's quite maneuverable. You know, if you're not quite happy where things are, you can easily then obviously move them around, where the hot glue, obviously, you know, it dries pretty much instantly or within a few seconds, and then obviously, you know, you can't really kind of move things around. So, you know, there's fors and against for each, but having said that, the hot glue is very, very, very quick, you know, to use, and it makes your projects come along much quicker, you know, which is really great. Now, I think that looks really, really pretty. Oh, I never did stick that flower down, look. There we go. Just pop that down there. And again, you know, if kind of any of these things are lifting, then I will stick them down kind of in slower time. So that's that. I think that looks really nice how it is. I have got a little metal key here, which obviously kind of goes with the lock. So we could actually, I wonder if we could attach that somehow to the brooch. You know, if we decide to go with the brooch, we maybe will decide not to, because perhaps it's going to be a little bit clunky and kind of big. not over keen on noise. I think I've said that before. I love all the charms that everybody makes, and I think they look really beautiful. You know, for me, I haven't really done that because I'm not over keen on the kind of clunking noise, but I do think they look beautiful. So, you know, I do really love them, and often have to use them kind of in more a ring bound journal where they can just be kind of taken off and things. But I mean, obviously if they can just be unclipped, then that's fine, isn't it? It's just otherwise, you know, every time you open it, you've kind of got that noise, which, you know. So, I mean, I quite like that. To me, that looks really quite pretty. Now, what you could do is obviously glue that ruffle down so that this is not moving so much. So I might do that. So what I'll do is kind of glue it to the sides of where it's actually pinned so that it is still unpinnable, if that's a word, you know, so that you can still take the pins off, but it's not kind of moving quite so much. So hopefully kind of now it's kind of slightly more fixed. I think it needs a little touch more glue just here. Yeah, so kind of more like that. Oops, try and get those threads of the hot glue off. They are terrible, aren't they? They get everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I really like that and think that looks really pretty. And then, as I say, what I will probably do, and again, I mean, I will do this in slow time so as not to obviously just bore everybody. But I will just go over this with either some glossy accent or some Mod Podge, probably Mod Podge, because I can't really imagine it glossy for some reason on this book. So probably, yeah, probably the Mod Podge. Now, I really hope that you can see this whole cover. What I might do is kind of lift the iPad up slightly because I just think it looks so pretty, and I just really want you to kind of get the whole thing in. So sorry that I'm kind of moving it around, but I just love how that's come out and think that just looks really pretty. So I've popped that back down, and obviously the final thing to do is obviously sort out the closure. So we're nearly done. Don't worry everybody, we are nearly done. I have obviously got this flap of fabric here at the back that we obviously didn't use because it was wet. So I'm going to first of all tidy that up by getting rid of the excess fabric. Again, I can just hopefully tear that along, but I will be careful, and actually this doesn't seem to be tearing quite so easily, and I can only wonder whether that's because it's going against the stripes. It's not wanting to kind of come across quite so easily. Hold on. So like that. There we go. So that looks good. Can you hear what I mean about the charm? But I do really love them. I don't want anyone to think that I don't love them. And equally, you know, it could be very well that from now on every journal I make has a charm, you know, because sometimes we make these statements and then actually go on to just constantly be using the very things we've kind of said that we weren't so keen on. But anyway, so obviously for the closure we're going to use this elastic trim. So I'll just kind of show you how that's going to look. It's just going to wrap around the book like this. So what I might do, just so as it has extra, is kind of actually even glue it, you know, we could even glue it right the way along. You know, in the past when I've used this, I have just tended to glue it kind of just at the edges. But, you know, we could glue it kind of right the way along. I don't think that's necessary, so I think we'll just do it here. So what we'll do, we'll just run a strip, a line of hot glue right the way along there, like that. Press it in, make sure it's really glued. And then, now this is where you have to be a bit careful because this elastic is very stretchy. So, you know, it's hard to get it just right without it being either too baggy or too tight. So I'm kind of thinking about there. which hopefully would kind of be plenty for the book to move, because obviously the book's going to grow yet because we've got tags and things to go into it. So just hold it there where I want it, run some glue down along the side and just pop that on there like that. Now if it turns out obviously that once we've got the tags in and things that this is not enough, then obviously I will unpick this and you know, redo it with extra. But you know, for the moment this is kind of, I think, about how we want it. You know, it says it's got kind of plenty of give but not too much, and then you just would slip this off and obviously open your journal. So I rather like those kinds of closures. I think they're, you know, they're quite nifty and quite speedy. Now I do wonder actually whether it should have been further back, but anyway, we'll kind of go with that. I like to obviously cover these up because they obviously don't look, you know, that attractive. So what we could do is obviously we could place a ruffle down, which just would soften the back of the book anyway and make it look really quite nice. So I quite like that, I think. I might just distress it like this slightly, because as with the other one, this is actually quite, you know, it's not been distressed at all, so it's quite kind of perfect looking, I suppose. So I just kind of put it roughly next to the book, so to know roughly the length to distress. You know, and again, I'm just roughly doing it. It doesn't have, well, I've left all the threads hanging and now they're just getting caught up and everything. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be even. It's just so that it's kind of more in keeping, I suppose, with the rest of the book, which, you know, as you know, is kind of very distressed and very kind of vintage looking. So, you know, I just feel it's not quite in keeping to have this then looking absolutely perfect. Right. Tear those bits of thread, because they weren't actually the threads from the sewing machine, they were the edges of the fabric. So I am going to get the ruffle. Oops, come away. Okay, and then I'm just going to glue it here. Now what I could do is kind of move these over slightly, because I did wonder if they were a little bit near the edge. The only thing is I'm not sure how dry this fabric is, so I'm not sure that that's quite ideal. Well, let's try. Just before I kind of glue the ruffle on. So, and this actually is, it's coming off rather well. Sometimes I find the hot glue also quite good from, you know, point of view of being able to pick things off. I do use it quite a bit in my kits on the packaging, because when I sell them I do always say that, you know, the idea is that you can kind of then pull things apart and pull things off, and so I do tend to use the hot glue because hopefully then things are a little bit more peelable, you know, whereas the wet glue, I mean, that really does stick things down, you know, really well, and things do invariably kind of tear. So right, I've moved that slightly, and obviously it doesn't matter, this is going to be covered up. So what I'm going to do is literally just move it back, probably just kind of the, you know, the size of the trim, if you see what I mean. So I'm just going to re-glue that here, and I would just glue it at the end as well. Okay, press that down, make sure it's glued properly. So I mean, obviously there is a little bit of hot glue here, it can pick off, but you know, it's going to be covered by the ruffle, so I don't think that matters too much. You know, I would rather have the elastic trim in the right place than, you know, worry about this little bit of glue here that really isn't going to be seen anyway because it's going to be covered. So just peel that off again, and then again just move it back kind of one, you know, the width again of the trim, and then just glue it back down. glue the very end. So, I mean, that one seemed to leave, you know, the whole run of glue onto the fabric. So, I mean, again, that could be picked off, but it is just going to be covered up. So, you know, I'm not going to worry too much. So, we've got the ruffle, and what I'm going to do is place the ruffle, I think, in front of the trim, like that. Because if I do it behind, you then get a line of the fabric. So I'm just going to run a whole strip of, or a whole line of the hot glue down there, and then I'm just going to stick this on, whoops, literally along there like that. And then I would just trim it at the edge. A horrible feeling that doing that on camera then I was going to cut the elastic closure, which wouldn't have been very funny. It can be a bit daunting doing things on camera, I think. You know, no covering up your mistakes when you're doing it on camera, is there? So, and I'm just going to literally pop a bit more glue there. And actually I don't need any more glue at the front, it's stuck pretty well. I'll just cut this thread slightly because it is quite long. Okay, so that's the back of the cover now, covered now with the ruffle. And then the front here, it's just got this elastic closure, just there like that. And that just slips off, and then you obviously can open the journal and have a look inside. So all we have literally left to do now is literally the tags and you know, what have you to go into here. So literally that's what I'm planning on doing next time. And again, I will try and kind of you know, do some planning ahead of time so it's not dragging on too long. You know, because obviously it, you know, probably won't be that fun to watch, to be honest. But, you know, as we said before, I mean, this journal is pretty chunky now, so we're going to probably have quite slimline things, more paper, you know, tags and things rather than bulky things. But yeah, very exciting. So we'll come on and kind of do those together next time. So I hope that you like the cover. I absolutely love the cover. I think it's turned out very, very pretty. And, you know, again, when I came and sat down, the only plan that I had in my head was that I wanted to use the fabric from my daughter's dress, and you know, that was kind of it really. The rest was kind of just play around and trial and error. So you know, I think it's turned out really, really, really pretty, and yeah, nicer really than I'd kind of hoped. So I hope that you all kind of like it as well. So thank you very much for watching, or continuing to watch if you've been following along, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.